quarterback.
Oh, there's a goal! At least they thought he was gonna until he blew it.
Everything is now ruined, apparently. If you veer into certain sects of the baseball landscape, baseball is fucked because most of the buyers at the deadline were big market teams who were favored to go far in the playoffs. Think the blue chip types like the Yankees, Astros, and Dodgers. It's not fair, some will cry. But I'll say the same thing I said about the Lightning's run to the Cup this year. They're not breaking any rules. They may be throwing everything to get some of the best talent available on the market, but there is neither a salary cap nor a salary floor. So it's legal in the parameters of MLB. Trust me, I hate it too. But once again, don't hate the player. Hate the game. At least for as long as we can enjoy it before the strife that is to come in the offseason. The Red Sox are still near the top of the AL East, but there is trouble lurking around every corner. The rivals in the division are starting to creep up on them again. Tampa Bay has usurped the division lead for the time being, and they had been one-upped for a few pieces at the deadline. The main example here being Anthony Rizzo. Boston had a huge hole at first base to fill, and Rizzo was linked to them well into the month. But a longtime foe poached them in the middle of the night. Those damn Yankees, always ruining the fun for Boston. They have to settle for their plan B. Another lefty who commits baseball battery on a frequent basis. Kyle Schwarber. He was last seen violating the Geneva Accords in June as a national. And now he will have his greatest challenge yet. Learning first base. Did you see how bad this guy was in the field as a Cub? Times in the Bronx might be tough. There may be bullpen implosions and groundouts aplenty in this new age, but you know the Yankee way when plans go awry? It's to throw more talent into the mix. With their Sith powers, they managed to not only acquire Joey Gallo and Anthony Rizzo for their lineup, they also had those teams pay the remainder of their salaries for the year in order to get better prospects. Gallo might be a bit redundant considering the profile of guys like Stanton and Judge, but he's a lefty bat. A desperate need for their lineup. Luke Voigt has struggled immensely this year as well, and Rizzo is also a lefty. Will these moves work out in the end? I'm not sure. They'll help, but a major issue seems to have been in the bullpen. And all they did to fix that was bring in Clay Holmes and Andrew Heaney. I think the real answers have to come from within for this team, particularly considering their competition. The Rays are still being the Rays. That is unsurprising in general. The surge back to the top of the AL East is another unsurprising revelation. Even with injuries to the likes of Tyler Glasnow, they will still find ways to flex intellectual superiority. One of the biggest needs on the team was power. Tampa Bay was well-rounded, but didn't have a legitimate bopper in the lineup. Until now. Nelson Cruz, the ageless wonder of the stick, was brought in to solidify their World Series hopes. Jordan Luplow brought in for the bench as well. Even with shipping off a few of their excess goods in pitching, the Rays still look to remain a force heading into the home stretch. No matter what they do, they find ways to eke out an existence. And they're doing a damn good job of it. Don't look now, but the Blue Jays are sneaking up on the rest of the pack as well. They boast an incredibly talented hitting core, but lacked health in the pitching staff. It's cost them particularly in the bullpen, but teams with ambition don't wish to settle without an upgrade to what they already have. They need another top-of-the-rotation option to go along with Ryu. And the target has been set. His name is Jose Barrios, a strong pitcher with control past this season. The price they paid for him was steep, but it's worth it for their short-term goals. To help the bullpen, Brad Hand and Joaquim Soria brought in to complement Jordan Romano. The Jays have finally returned to Toronto, and the hope is that they can return to prominence there as well. Remember how loud Rogers Center was during their last window? The hope is the same here. While it may be all but a runaway AL Central title for the White Sox, Chicago still had holes that needed to be addressed in the lineup. They needed a second baseman for the season, and they needed an elite setup man for the pen. Knowing this is their breakout season, Southside accomplished these objectives. At second base, they looked to a division competitor in Cleveland. Cesar Hernandez is reliable as a hired gun. I don't know if he's a long-term option, but he's good in a pinch for what they need. For the bullpen, they look to their neighbor in the north. The Cubs are selling, and Craig Kimbrell has had a renaissance. A 1-2 punch with him and Liam Hendricks? Tony La Russa has to be salivating at such an enterprise. The only problem comes in the cost of this maneuver. You traded Nick Madrigal plus for him? Wasn't he supposed to be part of the future core? So what are you doing at second base for the future? Big game hunting in the offseason? I guess there would be yes. For two other teams in the division, the playoff windows seem to be closing, at least temporarily. Cleveland has been dealing with a glut of injuries and wrecked ambitions this season. A team cursed with choking and hard luck has seemingly suffered the same fate again. The result is selling short-term pieces to try and reload for next year. But now their question comes at the man leading the dugout. Terry Francona's health issues have flared up again, and he's going to be removing himself from managing for the remainder of the year, if not a forced retirement. The man is a future Hall of Famer, but he's just been stricken with terrible luck with his ball clubs for over a decade, especially with the Indians. Wait, I should say the Guardians. Say it's based on a city landmark all you want, it's still soulless to me. At least Tito's found success at the postseason level, unlike a certain team in Minnesota. Rumors were swirling about them blowing it up and starting fresh, but they have chosen to hold off on that for now. The only huge pieces being shipped off at the deadline were Jose Barrios and Nelson Cruz. A few other guys got returns as well, so it at least eases the sting of a bitterly disappointing season. They kept guys like Buxton and Donaldson around, so they will be looking to reload in 2022. I just hope for their sake it doesn't become a habit. I don't understand what Kansas City's endgame here is. Whit Merrifield has tremendous skill as a second baseman, is on a team-friendly contract, and is currently in his early 30s. His market value isn't going to be getting any greater than this, and the Royals' ambitions were cut down by a ghastly June. So why did they choose not to trade him? Maybe Dayton Moore still believes in this team, but to me it's not ready for the big time just yet. By then it could be too late for them to capitalize on Merrifield's value. Detroit, on the other hand, is taking advantage of an imploding division. Young players are starting to take a stronghold on the team. They've gone from near-perennial basement dweller to hovering around 500. There are still many issues, but it's a positive sign from years of wandering in the abyss. The Tigers mostly stood pat at the deadline, but they didn't have much to sell. Jonathan Scope was the only interesting piece, and I doubt he had much value to anyone besides as a bench bat. Can't really complain about them holding serve. The Houston Astros are back to terrorizing their foes with precision bats and deceptive arms. Meanwhile, the rest of us seethe for, let's call them, obvious reasons. The goal again is to get back to a World Series and end all the narratives coming from their rivals. They can't win without cheating. They don't have the horsepower in their bullpen to secure true immortality. Don't challenge them. They'll answer the call. Kendall Graveman from Seattle and Yimi Garcia from Miami. Two high-profile arms meant to secure the back end of their bullpen. Phil Maton to bolster the middle of the pen as well. With these arms, they hope that it will complement their elite hitting core. The road will be treacherous, but Houston has been here before, and they know what they'll be facing. Oakland seems to be a team that's good, but not good enough at this point. There's talent here, but would you take them in a 5-game series against a team like Houston? I wouldn't think so. Even for the issues with the A's, the only moves they made to try and bolster were in the batter's box. Josh Harrison and Yan Gomes brought in from Washington to solidify catcher and infield. For the outfield, the prize was acquiring Starling Marte from Miami. He's a damn good player, and a vast upgrade at the plate in center field. But at the cost of a former top 10 prospect in Jesus Luzardo? It's a very risky gamble for them. Luzardo may have been overmatched in the bigs this year, it's still a tough choice to make. Oakland can't afford to lose any more battles on that front. They have enough shit going on off the field to deal with that. Seattle's moves, even with them being close to a wildcard spot, were kind of baffling. I can see their argument. Their run differential and underlying analytics show that this kind of run seems to be unsustainable and a crash to reality will be coming soon. That's the only way their deadline makes any sense. To trade their team's best reliever in Kendall Graveman, piss off the locker room, then go out and grab Diego Castillo due to more years of control? It's a strange set of moves. The only way the Graveman deal makes sense is that they must really love Abraham Toro. Otherwise, it just feels like a random player swap. At least Castillo is a good piece for the future. Maybe I'm just overthinking this. Look at that. The Rangers didn't fuck up the deadline. They managed to get decent returns for Joey Gallo and Kyle Gibson. See? You can lower your demands from absolutely outrageous and still get good assets for what you need in the future. I can't say the same for the team you're trotting on the field, but it might get you back to mediocrity in due time. As for the Angels, they did a time-honored tradition of theirs under the Moreno dynasty at the deadline. The bare minimum. No buying, no selling besides Andrew Heaney and Tony Watson for a pittance. Go and overcompensate for your weaknesses by drafting nothing but pitchers in the draft. They aren't going to be anything for at least a couple of years. And by that point, the generational talents in your lineup may no longer be generational. Have fun with that. Atlanta may be dealing with a season no one should have to endure. Their star offensive talent may be out for the rest of the year, and their playoff hopes seem to be in jeopardy. But that won't stop them from trying, damn it! The moves they made weren't huge splashes, but those to bolster their depth. In the outfield, they need replacements for Acuna and Ozuna. For low prices, they got their reinforcements in Eddie Rosario, Jock Peterson, Jorge Soler, and the return of Adam Duvall. Catcher is a weak spot with d'Arnaud out. It can be temporarily filled by Stephen Vaught. The bullpen needs help. With Richard Rodriguez, the Braves hope it can be shored up. They have overhauled their outfield in one swoop. And other positions get much-needed assistance, but it doesn't mean their challenges won't be getting any easier. The NL East is still bitterly competitive, and the teams in front of them will make sure of it. In recent years, the Mets have become a laughingstock several times over by means of a spectacular June skid. That has unfortunately not happened this year, and they have greater ambitions than reinforcing the traditions of Lowell Mets. They had been linked to nearly every prized possession on the market. Third base was a significant hole, but it seemingly hasn't been filled. Queens didn't come away from this auction empty-handed, though. Not with their acquisition of Javier Baez. He's a frustrating player, but witness one game of his and you will see the sheer talent that he's been blessed with. It's potentially game-changing when he's on a hot streak, and they'll get his bat into the lineup by any means necessary. Where do you put him? You could do shortstop, but Lindor's defense is just as strong as Baez. Second base? Maybe if you can move McNeil around the infield. Perhaps third, but he's inexperienced at that position. It's a good problem to have if you're the Mets. With the return of Carlos Carrasco and acquiring Dick Mountain from the Rays, they're gearing up for something great. And hopefully it'll end better than Kumar Rocker not being signed due to an injury revealed after the draft. All they need is for Jacob deGrom to return from injury. It's not looking too good on that front. Out indefinitely? I have a cynical feeling about where this is headed. The Phillies are an incredibly frustrating team. No matter the dollars they pay for the talent on their roster, something goes to absolute shit and they can't ascend past the middling futility of a .500 record. Philly is mercurial in nature, but Dave Dombrowski isn't one to sit on his heels. The itch to trade and bolster is in his blood. To move from Texas, they not only strengthen their rotation, but add another piece to the pen who hopefully won't suck. Kyle Gibson has had an outstanding year with Texas. He joins the rotation chorus, as does Ian Kennedy for their bullpen. They paid a hefty price for these men, including a top prospect in Spencer Howard. But in Dombrowski's world, it's a necessary sacrifice. Now, if only they could get over 500, I'd have some faith in them. The time to have faith in Washington, however, has come and gone. Despite hopes of returning to a World Series, the magic of 2019 has dissipated. The team just died without warning. They had shown some flashes of their old glory in June, but a return back to the doldrums in July had sealed their fate. There was only one choice for management to make: the nuclear option. A strong portion of their veteran core, including Max Scherzer and Trey Turner, have been shipped off to parts throughout baseball. The Nats honestly had to do it. If you consider that 2019 team, they were very old. And this sudden shift to a hard reset was bound to happen sooner rather than later. Whatever momentum they had in that sudden World Series run had been used up, and all they had was a mediocre team to showcase at best. Their prospect core is ghastly weak, and these moves will set the foundations of a new squad. In hindsight, I just think this team should have been so much more than what they had been over the years. You could make the argument that 2019 was a fluke, but it's still a championship. Plus, they still have Juan Soto, and the thanks of a baseball world eager to see the Astros eat shit. They will always have that. Remember those memories and go in peace. As for the Cubs, they are also in a tough spot. This year was the last chance for their core to make an impact on their postseason fortunes, and they knew it. Even then, a disastrous June and long losing skid would be their undoing. A bunch of key pieces had expiring contracts, and they couldn't bring them all back. And with a mediocre team, the path was clear. You were warned about failure, Chicago. Now you have to sift through the rubble to find old memories. Baez, Bryant, and Rizzo are all gone. Craig Kimbrell and Ryan Tepera traded as well. It's the end of an era for Chicago, one they will cherish for 2016. But I feel this group is one that could have been far greater than what they were. Despite the early success, the past few years have been flooded with woeful underachieving. And with the original thoughts of this core headlining at least another World Series, I think this may go down as another what-if scenario. I don't blame them for doing this, however. It was the best choice they could have made. They weren't signing all three of them, and the prospects they got back in return are excellent. It might be another year or two, but I think the Cubs will be back. At least their owner can stop bitching about player salaries and the luxury tax for the time being. Milwaukee, on the other hand, has a golden opportunity at their fingertips. They have the pitching staff to get it done, but like 2018, they need more pieces to achieve what has eluded them for decades in a World Series appearance. In regards to these moves, there were plenty. for the hitting core add Rowdy Tellez and Eduardo Escobar to give it more life. In the bullpen, bring in John Curtis and Daniel Norris. They didn't need much, but the way to get past a brutal NL West is in general improvements in hitting. A COVID wave is starting to hit the team, but it hasn't hurt them yet. The Reds are trying to remain on their toes, but seem to take one step back for each step they move forward. They only made smaller moves, which makes sense in their regard. They could catch lightning in a bottle, but it's too risky to spend useful assets on hoping that such an event could occur. Best to just let the current hitting form of guys like Joey Votto take them where they want to go. I swear, this team is so frustrating sometimes. Speaking of frustrating, the St. Louis Cardinals. What the fuck are they doing? Besides falling apart in inopportune times? Even if their playoff hopes are a long shot, don't tell that to team management. Their starting rotation apparently needed to be injected with the eternal sunshine of the elder statesman, John Lester and Jay Happ. This isn't 2016, St. Louis. Have you noticed how horrible both have been doing this year? More importantly, why the fuck did you trade John Gant for Jay Happ? Did you think he was suddenly going to have this great resurgence like he did in Pittsburgh in 2015? These moves say we want to pretend we're competitive, yet don't really give a shit about anything besides appearances. All this is doing is emphasizing how weirdly constructed this team is and nothing more. You're 10 games back of relevance. Stop pretending you're in the goddamn playoff race and try to acknowledge you have serious problems. Fuck! To no one's surprise, the Pirates have continued to sell off whatever they can. Total liquidation. And I'm all for it. They've got fair value for what they traded and accomplished their goals at the deadline. Even if you want to bitch, at least they aren't the Rockies. Speaking of the Rockies, does anyone have access to the commissioner's personal telephone line? I'd like to recommend contraction for this franchise, as it's the only thing they truly deserve. Explain this to me. Colorado is a dead man walking this year. They have several assets that are highly sought after on the market in Trevor Story, John Gray, and German Marquez. There's a good chance two of them are leaving in free agency after the year. So why the hell is it that the Rockies did absolutely nothing at the deadline? They literally gave away Arenado for $50 million, yet they become cowardly when it was time to sell more pieces? What the fuck are they even doing? You can't honestly tell me that the best offer they got for these pieces was a compensatory pick. It's either ignorance, arrogance, or both. No, Trevor, it's not just you that's confused. It's the rest of us as well. Fuck this team. Let's move on to a real team and get the taste of failure out of our mouths. San Diego is in their year of true emergence, but they have issues they need to address. They're starting to lag behind the rest of their division, even for as strong as it is. They lack a reliable third rotation arm with the struggles of Paddock and Snell. The bench needs to be strengthened. They need to realize what they can truly be. And with their moves, there's a chance it might happen. Big splashes were made in this regard. Adam Frazier and Jake Marisnick to aid team depth. And Daniel Hudson to add another quality arm to the bullpen. Speaking of the Nationals, there's a rumor that Max Scherzer is going to be taking his talents to San Diego too. Wait a minute. He's going to... Are you fucking serious? The Dodgers brought in Scherzer? And a Trey Turner? Really? The rich get richer, eh? As much as baseball wants to complain, it's a smart move for LA. We still have no idea when the hell Trevor Bauer is coming back, if at all. Trey Turner is an excellent piece who should fill in nicely into a middle infield flush with depth. That's not to mention Danny Duffy being acquired from Kansas City to further bolster a pitching staff of riches. If Bauer comes back, they have the potential to have 4, maybe 5 Cy Young candidates on their staff. That kind of shit is impressive, even if it sucks from a parity standpoint. All you can do is tip your cap and hope they get knocked out before getting a chance to win another World Series. One of those teams hoping to knock the Dodgers down a peg are the Giants. Before you pester me with questions, San Francisco is still doing extremely well this season. You couldn't tell with how they neared the trade deadline. They were eerily quiet for how strongly they were performing. Do something, their fans cried. We need a big splash to prove our team is for real. Time winded down to nearly the very end, but the Giants responded in a big way. Chris Bryant, a huge piece that fills several needs on the team at once. A shot in the arm for a group that has exceeded every expectation they've had. Not to mention a return of Tony Watson to the bullpen that helped him be great. It didn't even cost them significant prospects to bring in these men, which is even better for the Giants. And in this case, why not try for something great? You never know what the hell can happen. We've seen it many times before. And we might just witness such an event occur again. Prepare for the home stretch. It's going to get interesting.
there's Chris Bryant
thanks.
on the phone, still in the Cubs uniform, and there you have it. He has just been dealt to the San Francisco Giants. You see the warm embraces, number 17, a pillar in the Cubs history, and we're going to keep you posted right here as things continue to unfold. Trade deadline day as KB wipes away the tears.